Hey guys, welcome to part 1 of our hopes and expectations for Nintendo in 2019. I'm your host, Andre Seegers, and this time we're joined by Derek Binder, John Cartwright, and Steve Bowling to discuss all the first-party games that we know about coming to Nintendo Switch, and maybe some that we don't. So let's get right to it. So before we get to our overall expectations for Nintendo in 2019, I went back and looked at our 2018 predictions discussion, and it's funny what kind of contrast we're dealing with here in terms of the games we know about. Back in our previous discussion, the only games we knew for sure were coming that year were Bayonetta 1 and 2, Kirby Star Allies, Yoshi's Crafted World, which we didn't have a title for yet, and Fire Emblem, which of course also didn't come out that year. Those are the ones we thought were going to come though. This year, however, we have a massive list. These are only the confirmed games so far. We have New Super Mario Bros. U Deluxe, Travis Strikes Again, Yoshi's Crafted World, Daemon X Machina, Fire Emblem 3 Houses, Town, Pokémon, the 8th generation one, Luigi's Mansion 3, Animal Crossing, Marvel Ultimate Alliance, The Black Order, and then possibly Shin Megami Tensei, Bayonetta 3, and Metroid Prime 4. And those are just the potential titles we know about. So of the ones that seem to be absolutely hitting this year, it's already blowing past what we knew last year at this point in time. So it's making me think, what else is there that we possibly don't know about? So before we get to all of that, of course, I want to get your guys' general expectations for 2019. How do you think it's shaping up? How do you think it's looking? So yeah, how are you guys feeling about 2019, looking at this list, especially compared to what we knew at this point last year?
I mean, it's certainly an impressive list. The funny thing is that two of the games that you listed off that we knew for sure were coming in 2018 or that Nintendo had in the pipeline didn't actually come out. Yoshi and Fire Emblem.
That's right.
That we have more information on both of them, and we got some solid ideas, at least for Yoshi's Crafted World coming in the spring. Still no idea about Fire Emblem 3 Houses, no idea when that's coming, but that's a great lineup, and I think Nintendo is going to continue strongly with new Super Mario Bros. U Deluxe coming out. We might not personally have any interest, but those 2D Mario games always do super well for Nintendo. To have that on the Switch after it not really doing much on the Wii U, it's probably going to be bigger than we think, and it's already going to kick off January pretty well for them. And based on what we've seen so far and what could potentially come at the same idea for that happened with 2018, and the fact that they've had that entire year to work on games that could potentially release in 2019, I think we're in for a good year that might even reach the heights of 2017, depending on what they release. I'm not sure.
I agree with you, and there's 4 games that are absolutely huge on that list. One of them is Animal Crossing. So Animal Crossing on 3DS outsold Smash, it outsold Pokemon Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon, and I think it was the 6th or 7th best-selling 3DS game in total. Just above it was Mario 3D Land and New Super Mario Bros. 2. And then there's another one, Mario U is absolutely going to be huge as well. Mario U only sold something like, I think it was 5 million, 6 million units on Wii U, and on 3DS, New Super Mario Bros. 2 sold 12 million units. So there's a huge potential there as well. I guess a lot of people missed out on this game. I know it's old news to a lot of us, but there are people out there who don't generally follow Nintendo as strongly as we do, and to them, they've never played Mario U. And what they're getting is Mario U and Luigi U. So I think the value there is going to be crazy. For a lot of them, maybe they haven't played this series since the Wii one. And that was like almost a decade ago now.
Yeah.
I think that's going to be a very appealing title that's kind of being overshadowed by a lot of other games, in our opinions, or in the media's opinion anyway. But I think Mario U is going to be huge.
I agree with what Derek said, that this could be a year that rivals 2017 in terms of quality. I mean, the list we're looking at is first-party stuff. That's to say nothing of what third parties have prepped for next year, and it almost certainly isn't the full list of what Nintendo themselves have prepped for the next year. I expect there to be a lot more surprises in 2019, and this list, like John said, is already pretty stellar. I mean, Pokémon Gen 8 coming to the Switch is going to be huge. Even games like New Super Mario Bros. U Deluxe are going to sell a ton of copies. There's a rabid Fire Emblem fan base out there that'll eat up 3 houses assuming it comes out in 2019. Yoshi's Crafted World looks cool, and Animal Crossing is going to do gangbusters no matter what. And this is just the few things we already know about. I expect there to be a lot more from Nintendo that we just haven't heard about yet.
Right.
It's weird to know this much, because usually we go into a year not knowing anything at all. If you look at the Switch's first year, we basically knew that, well, we didn't actually know anything. We knew that there might be a 3D Mario, but we didn't actually see it. We knew Breath of the Wild was coming, and that's basically all we knew until the January presentation. And that's kind of how they operate most years, because they announce games months before they're released, not years. There are some exceptions on this list, though. Fire Emblem, of course, has been known about for about 2 years now. Animal Crossing was, 2018. So yeah, there are a lot of titles here that we've known about for a while, which is quite un-Nintendo. But I agree with Steve, there's probably going to be a plethora more that just haven't been announced yet.
And that's the absurd thing, if there are. Like, if all these games do indeed come out this year, right now we have 10 games basically confirmed for 2019. And then there are also the three others, being Shin Megami Tensei, Bayonetta 3, Metroid Prime 4. If those come out this year as well, we're looking at over 12 titles. That's more than a title a month, and that's not counting other titles they could be announcing. Which seems absurd. This is beyond, I think, what 2017 offered us, where they had roughly a game a month. We're looking at a even greater pace here, potentially, which is nuts, especially when you look at the caliber of these titles. Obviously, not every title is huge. Travis Strikes Again, probably not going to be a massive title, for instance, even if it is Nintendo published. But some of these games, like Pokemon and Animal Crossing, these are basically, like, correct me if I'm wrong, or tell me if you disagree, I think these are basically the Breath of the Wild and Mario Odyssey of this year, potentially.
Yeah, they totally are. I mean, I can't see them being as revolutionary as Breath of the Wild, but in terms of sales and pushing the Switch, absolutely. And with Animal Crossing, I kind of expect them to just be iterative and make things HD. Because that's all Animal Crossing really needs. It's been a long time since New Leaf, and people just kind of want a nicer looking village with a few quality of life improvements.
Pocket Camp's not doing it for you on those RedNet displays?
I completely forgot about Pocket Camp.
I did too until just now, so...
I honestly, looking at this list, I would not be surprised if, outside of Pokemon, every one of these games comes out before July.
Oh, that is a bold statement, my friend.
When we say every one of these games, are we talking about the final three? Shin Megami Tensei, Bayonetta, and Metroid Prime?
I'm discounting those. But okay. I'm saying Yoshi's Crafted World, Daemon X Machina, Fire Emblem, Town, Luigi's Mansion 3, Animal Crossing, and Marvel Ultimate Alliance 3. I think those will all come out before July.
I might agree with you. I think Animal Crossing is a questionable one, but it is a good summer title. But I do feel like Luigi's Mansion 3 is probably fairly soon. And I think actually Dark Moon launched in March or April, if I'm correct. So I feel like Luigi's Mansion 3 is probably sooner than we expect it to be. Well, actually, what's interesting is we look at Pokemon and Luigi's Mansion and Animal Crossing and Fire Emblem, and those were the games that kind of pushed the 3DS. It kind of feels like they're looking at 3DS's software rather than Wii U's for what they're going to be outputting in 2019. Yeah, this just kind of feels like 3DS's 2012 in a way, where they're just kind of pushing out quality software after quality software.
Yeah, so I guess, do you guys expect a January Direct soon to help clarify some of these release dates? And possibly more.
I wouldn't be surprised.
Hasn't there always been a January Direct?
I think there has.
Have you had a year without one?
I'm pretty confident there's going to be one.
Yeah, I think there will be. And yeah, I also don't think this is it for the first half of the year either. I think Derek's right where most of these will be released in the first half of 2019, but I feel like there's more. I feel like maybe there's like something kind of like Snipperclips caliber, something small that we haven't really had since the launch of the Switch.
Yeah, that's a great point. They haven't done a ton of games of that caliber, so that would be a great way to fill in. Well, I was going to say gaps, but I don't think there are going to be any gaps with this. But again, I mean, that's assuming you're interested in every title, and even myself, I'm not interested in everything here. So there will be gaps for people with different demographics or different interests. So yeah, I think it'd be nice if we got some smaller scale titles, to help pad it out a little bit. Alright, well, should we start discussing some of these games a little bit more in depth? Go through them one by one, talk about what we expect of them, and yeah, what we hope from them, I suppose?
Sure.
Yeah, why not?
Alright, well, so let's start off with the biggest mystery here, being New Super Mario Bros. U Deluxe.
Of course.
It's not like you don't already have it.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, right. I already have the darn thing. So I don't know how much we have to say about this that we haven't already said to some degree. It's going to sell extremely well, I think. It sold... Actually, I suppose I think it did okay on Wii U. I think it underperformed for what Nintendo probably expected, but that's probably just because of the Wii U as a platform. I think it's going to explode on Switch, though, as Derek was already touching on. Plus, it has a fancy new logo and Toadette. So, I mean, Toadette's already kind of captured the imagination, which sounds like a good thing. It isn't on the internet. So I do think this is going to resonate with a lot of people, and it will pull in, I think, more casual people as well, even beyond what Mario Odyssey did, I think. So I think this could be a huge game.
That's a good point, Andre, because it will pull in a lot of casual players, and maybe it's not a game that's for people who generally follow Nintendo, and that's not a bad thing. I find this game very unexciting, but most of our videos for this have pushed 200,000 views or 300,000 views. I think Nintendo's debut trailer is it something like 2 million views?
Jeez.
There's clearly an audience for this game, even if a lot of the Nintendo fan base isn't really into it. So yeah, I have zero excitement for this, but I think it will just blow my expectations away, though.
Right. Yeah, it's hard to be excited because it's something we've all played ourselves before, so it's old news to us. But then again, so is Tropical Freeze, and I love playing that again. And although I wasn't hyped for it, I would say, I was looking forward to it, and that's not quite the same for Mario for me. I've already started revisiting a bit. I'm not necessarily looking back to playing through the rest of it, or looking forward to playing through the rest of it. So, yeah, I don't know. How you feeling, Steve?
You know, I really enjoyed New Super Mario Bros. U. That said, I'm not really champing at the bit to get my hands on this port. Nabbit's cool. I think having Toadette and Peachette is kind of a cool addition to it, but it's not enough to make me want to spend $60 to play this again. I agree with you guys in that it just doesn't seem all that exciting. I do think it's, a fun little game, but I don't think it's going to sell any systems or bring new people into the fold. I think it's just a nice addition to the library that there will definitely be some folks, probably younger kids, that'll pick this up, and it'll do well, but yeah, it's not something Nintendo fans are really aching to get their hands on.
It's not a hardcore game, but look at all the kids that maybe got a Switch for Christmas. They got the Switch, they played Super Smash Brothers, looking for that next game to get, and boy, how did we have a Mario game, and trust me, as a kid that didn't really know what he wanted and had parents pick out what they might like, Mario is it. They always go towards Mario, and that's why he sells so well, so parents will probably pick that up for their kids, and that's probably a good reason why it'll sell so well on the Switch.
Well, plus it's multiplayer, and even the logo shows two separated Joy-Cons, so it makes it very clear it's a game that can be enjoyed by multiple people, which is perfect for families. And of course, they also have a ton of content too between New Super Mario Bros. U and New Super Luigi U. So yeah, there is a fair amount. Like if you're brand new to the game, and especially the series, there's a lot going on there. So yeah, that's going to be big. Let's move on to a second title coming in January. On January 18th, being Travis Strikes Again, No More Heroes. So I think this is something most of us have had the chance to play at preview events, and I've enjoyed it so far. I don't see this being a huge title, though. I think it'll interest a very specific portion of the Switch user base, but yeah, I don't think it's gonna be as big as past No More Heroes.
Well, it's very different from past No More Heroes because it isn't a mainline title. It's just a spin-off with some multiplayer elements, and I think it's almost better to look at this as an indie game. You shouldn't compare it to previous No More Heroes sells. It's maybe better to compare it to how other indie games sell and go based on that. Because what I played of this game at a demo event, it was fine, if unremarkable at the time. But John, I think you got to play beyond that opening bit that we've all played.
Yeah, Andre has too, actually.
Did you not watch our videos, Derek?
Nope.
Yeah, there's some interesting stuff, and I will say the opening area is maybe the most dull of them all. It makes the game feel a little bit like just a soulless hack and slash,
right.
But as it goes on, it does get a lot more interesting.
Yeah, it totally does.
There's basically multiple worlds in this game, and they all operate differently. And I like how it's all sort of contextually connected together. Like, it's not just a list of games that you play. You kind of travel around in the real world a little bit before getting into these games, and it makes it feel a bit more like an adventure in that respect. So I think they've kind of marketed this game a bit poorly, to be honest. Like, it's better than I thought it would be, based on what they showed us initially.
I played the same opening bit that Derek has, and I hadn't touched the game since then, but I've been really excited about the coverage I've been seeing come out of it lately. Since more of the game has been revealed, I probably went from being completely underwhelmed by it to being, I'd say, at least somewhat interested. I want to play it when it comes out. I'm a huge fan of the mainline games, and I'm a huge fan of what Devolver does in general. So I'm interested to see how this partnership between the Suda and Devolver kind of works out, if it's anything beyond the shirts that are available in the game. But it's definitely got my interest. I'm probably going to pick it up when it comes out.
In our interview with Suda, he actually confirmed that Hotline Miami will have a larger role than other indie titles. So
wow.
it isn't just a shirt for that one. So there's going to be some
nice.
kind of Hotline Miami crossover that's going on in there.
I like that.
Yeah, see, that's exactly what I'm down for, so I'm interested to see what that content will look like.
Well, you'll be seeing that pretty soon, Steve, because it comes out in just a few weeks, so...
I can't wait.
Yep, should be fun.
Please buy it. Let's get... I believe, John, maybe you can correct me, Suda did say he was already kind of tooling around with ideas for No More Heroes 3. as well, right?
Right.
So yes, please buy the game. Let's get No More Heroes 3.
Pretty much. Yeah, in our interview with him, he said that on the plane ride over, he was actually conceptualizing the story of No More Heroes 3, and that glove that Travis wears in Travis Strikes Again to enter the Phantom game system, he's going to take that out of the game and bring it into No More Heroes 3. So it kind of sounds like this isn't just a spin-off, really. It's kind of a stepping stone to the next game. So it sounds like if this game does sell well, we probably will get No More Heroes 3. And if you're a fan of the series, story-wise, this is kind of crucial.
It sounds like a chain of memory situation. Like, play this offshoot, but it has relevance to the main game.
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah, that's a good way of putting it. I do think it's closer to the main games than some people are giving it credit for. With that said, it still is very much its own thing. But yeah, I mean, I think if you're a No More Heroes fan, you probably owe it to yourself to check this one out. Although we'll know for sure once we review it or get it in and can play for ourselves. All right, let's move on to to what should be a spring title, being Yoshi's Crafted World, which again was originally expected last year when we didn't even have a full title yet. For most of the year, we didn't have a full title. What are our hopes and expectations for this game? We haven't seen a whole ton of it yet. It was really only in I believe the last Direct, the last proper Nintendo Direct, that we got a new trailer that kind of fleshed out what we knew of the game, and it looked. To me, it definitely looks stronger then. Like, it's like, okay, these are actually some kind of cool, unique gameplay mechanics. Like ones where you backtrack through the level, for instance, or you, like, double back on the level, but it's like, has something new to it. I'd have to go back and rewatch it, but it looked more interesting than it did before. How are you guys feeling about this?
I'm super excited for this one, honestly. I loved Yoshi's Woolly World, and after doing the analysis for Crafted World, I'm really intrigued by a lot of the stuff that they showed in there. Like, you talked about the whole flipping mechanic, because you're right, you go through the stage, you have that normal setup of left to right, and you get to this checkpoint or certain points, I guess, and the camera flips to the other direction, and all of a sudden you can see everything behind it, and you can see what was creating this crafted world. Like, you can see the tape, and you can see the construction paper, you can see how it's in a room, and it's like tables set up, and all this really, really cool stuff. Like, it's almost like a kid created this diorama to put Yoshi through, and I love that aesthetic so much. We don't know much beyond that, but as far as the level design and how everything has a sort of 2D, 3D look to it, and there's a lot of exploration. I'm really digging it. I don't know if it'll reach the heights of Woolly World, but I like that they're still on the same track and could potentially be just as good, because I know you weren't as excited about Woolly World or didn't get into it as much, Andre, but I do think that is the best Yoshi game since the original Yoshi's Island. And
I mean, you say that as if that says anything.
Yeah, it's true. But I say it can get to that heights. Yeah.
Yeah, you are right. Woolly World is the best Yoshi game since the original Yoshi's Island, but it's also very iterative of Yoshi's Island and has many of the same ideas. And a lot of what it does is it has the original game to thank for. Whereas I look at Crafted World, and this kind of looks different. This doesn't look like other Yoshi games. The level designs and the themes and the environments all look completely different. And I like how the actual environments seem to have a gameplay focus too. Like, you can look out into the distance and throw an egg at something, and it will just sort of cause the level to unfold. It feels like for the first time a Yoshi game has interactive worlds. Like, we've had things like flowers grow or something, but we've never actually had levels work quite like this before. I think that's my biggest issue with Woolly World. It just felt like Yoshi's Island, but with a nicer art style, or a different art style. Whereas Crafted World looks ambitious to me.
I'm with Derek. I cannot wait for this game. I loved Woolly World. It's one of my favorite games on the Wii U, and I played the heck out of it. I cannot wait to try Crafted World. For my money, it's one of the prettiest looking games on the Switch in general. Just the way they use the depth of field effect, and everything looks like it's made out of real world materials. You know, we don't know a whole lot about the game beyond the look of it, but from what I've seen, I'm definitely hyped for this one. It's one of my most anticipated games for next year.
I do love that depth of field effect, because whenever I start up Kirby Star Allies, I'm always taken back by it, and then I realize it runs at 30 frames per second, and I don't want to play it anymore. But until that moment, I do love that effect. So I think it will look quite good in Yoshi as well. So yeah, I mean, I suspect that's something we'll be seeing quite a bit more of too in the presumed January Direct. I forget, has co-op been confirmed? It has been shown for it. Yeah, it was shown initially, right? Yeah. Has it been shown again?
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Just the latest one was Yoshi can ride the other Yoshi.
Oh, well, that is I don't know how I feel about that, but that's cool that it's there. Alright, let's move on to another title that I feel like we don't know a ton about, being Daemon X Machina. This was announced at last year's, I might have been saying last year a couple of times, 2017's E3. we've seen, I think, a couple of trailers, but have we seen it in action yet? I don't think we have, right? In actual like gameplay sessions?
I think we have seen it in
action. Oh, have we? Okay, I must have missed that then. So, how are we feeling about this game?
The art style looks good, but I don't have a feel for it. Like, it looks unique. It looks like there's a lot of action going on. I can't really form an opinion on this game yet. It just looks chaotic, and I don't really know what they're aiming for really with it.
It's a very pretty looking game, and they've described it as a game for people who like to tinker with machines, but I don't think they've really given us enough info to work with here. I know that I like what I see, but that doesn't tell me how the game will play or what you do in it, or if there's a campaign, what it looks like, if there's online, what that looks like. So I'm interested to hear more, but that's really all I can say about the game at the moment.
Yeah, I'm kind of in line with you guys. The best I can gather is it seems like a combination between the mechs of Xenoblade Chronicles X and the gameplay of Zone of the Enders to a degree, and just a chaotic mishmash of that. And I mean, it's giant mechs fighting in this beautiful world, and that's intriguing on its own, but I haven't seen a hook yet to really draw me in and be like, yes, I need to play that. It looks so much fun. It just looks intriguing, but I don't have a sense of it, and that's the problem.
And I think they opened E3 2018 with this, and it felt like they were kind of going rapidly with it. I think they were trying to get to Smash Bros. Really, but they didn't really show a whole lot of this game.
Right.
And I believe it was in the treehouse at one point too, but even when watching gameplay, I couldn't get a good grasp of it.
That's been my take. I'm not even sure if I saw the gameplay. Maybe I did, but if I didn't, or regardless of whether I did or not, I don't have a great grasp on this game. Derek, you were saying it needs a hook. What if they made a Steel Battalion controller with Labo?
Oh God!
In fact,
I'm never buying this game.
You use every existing controller, you connect it together.
Sold.
Even the NES Online controller slot into the side of this.
Oh man, I love this. You can have the fishing rod as like a grappling hook. Alright, I kind of want this.
Not that kind of hook.
It's the best kind of hook. Alright, so yeah, hopefully that's a game we find out more about, because clearly we don't know what to think of it at this point. It has potential, we just don't know what that potential might fully be. Next up, another title that should be arriving in the spring would be Fire Emblem Three Houses. Now this is the game also we haven't seen, I think, too much of. We had a trailer of it that you analyzed, Derek. Did that give you did that give you a good idea what you expect from this game?
I mean, it basically looks like Fire Emblem, like you'd expect, just nice and pretty and bigger maps and whatnot. The biggest thing that you can really pull from it is how there's like troops with each of your main characters, the characters that you actually control, that give it a better sense of actually being a battle. And it seems very well crafted and intriguing, but we don't know much about the plot. We don't know much about what makes it different. We got names for the three main characters, but that's about it. And I don't really know how to feel about it yet, because there's just not enough to really gauge on. It's exciting because it's another Fire Emblem, and I really do enjoy that series, and I'm hoping they took some lessons from Fire Emblem Echoes, especially when it comes to presentation, and make something that's really well worth playing. I feel like this is a very key title for the Fire Emblem series, because they had this great comeback with Awakening, and then they kind of squandered it with Fates, because a lot of people are so split on that game. There's a lot to enjoy about it, but there's a lot of things that people weren't quite down on, and I think Echo's kind of course corrected, but it's hard to completely course correct when it's a remake in general and very different gameplay wise. So we're gonna have to see what they decide to do with the whole marriage and child mechanic, because I think that's a key thing. What they decide to do whether you can have those relationships to get kids that get you new units that are unique. I think Fates kind of killed that for a lot of people, and it got away from what some classic Fire Emblem fans want. Fire Emblem has a tough job of balancing the old fans with the new fans, and I'm curious what they're going to do with Three Houses.
I will say it seems like the new fans are the more marketable ones, because Awakening has such a huge following. And when you look at like the Smash inclusion, the vast majority of it is based on Awakening at the moment. Like you have Lucina, you have Chrom, Robin, and I kind of feel like they need to lean into the characters a bit more, Three Houses, because so far they've shown us some gameplay. We've seen like characters roaming around the world, which is quite cool. But when it comes to actual cutscenes and the story, we know zilch. Like we don't know anything about this game. And that's kind of the part of Fire Emblem that I think is the easiest to sell. because trying to sell a strategy game is tricky. Like I think they need to sort of lean into the anime a bit more.
Yeah, it's a funny thing is that they might need to lean into the anime to help it sell, which is a little weird because there's always that general idea is like, oh, if it looks too anime, people aren't going to pick it up. Or like, we don't want to get into that. But that is kind of the key focus, is that you got this high drama and character interactions, and they need to show fun characters. They need to show characters that people are like, oh, I really like them, or I want to try them out, or something interesting in that effect, in that way, because I think the characters are how you sell a Fire Emblem game at this point. You have some interesting new hooks for the gameplay, and you have a lot of fun new characters, and if they can pull that off, Three Houses should be fine.
I think no matter what, it'll do fine sales-wise. So.
Oh, yeah.
This is going to be a big game, because is this the first main installment of Fire Emblem on the console?
Since Radiant Dawn.
Oh, the GameCube? GameCube, they have one,
Radiant Dawn on Wii.
Oh, wow, it's actually more recent than I realized.
And it's still a while ago. So.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of people do view it as a handheld franchise now, so it is going to be interesting having it back on consoles.
They absolutely do. Like, Fire Emblem, when it was on Wii and GameCube, is very different to what it is now. The core identity of the franchise is the same, but Awakening gave it just a jolt of life, and I think a lot of the fans, like a lot of the modern fans, probably came in with Awakening.
Right. Oh, I'm sure. Yeah, that game blew up, so absolutely. Well, let's go ahead and move on to another title that we know really next to nothing about, being Town. All we know is that it should be coming out sometime this year. Beyond that rather abstract title, we know little else beyond what we saw in that brief trailer. So, Derek, I think we're going to do an analysis on it, but we never got around to it. What's your take on this?
We were, but it's like one of those things like, well, what do we really say? Because they really gave all the details right there. You're based around a single town. You're adventuring out there. Sometimes monsters attack, and you got to sort of defend it. You really don't have much beyond that. And I love the art style, though. I mean, I saw Town. I saw it being worked on by Game Freak, and all of a sudden I'm like, I want Pokemon to look like this. That was my big takeaway, is I want Pokemon to look like this, because that'd be amazing. As far as Town itself, I don't know. I need to see more. I mean, it has that potential intriguing hook, but it also runs the risk of kind of getting old, because you are just based around one town with some adventuring elements, and it depends on what you adventure around, because that's sort of the same idea behind Ever Oasis, where you were based around one town that you were building up, and you would explore all the areas around it. And they had some variety when it came to that, but it still gave that same general sense of you've seen everything. Mm-hmm. So I think that's going to be the big issue that they need to work through and to really capture people's attention. But I think it's Game Freak. Game Freak puts out a lot of good games beyond Pokemon, so I think they could pull it off.
The premise reminds me a lot of Final Fantasy The Crystal Chronicles My Life as a King, which also takes place in just one town, and you just kind of manage it. I guess it might get old after a while, but you have this sense of familiarity of the town, which I think is actually quite cool. And I love it when big studios just do these smaller, more focused games. And Game Freak do some great stuff outside of Pokemon, and it's great to see something of this caliber come from them, and they've actually been working on quite a lot recently. When we have Let's Go, we have Gen 8, we have Pokemon Quest, and now we have Town. And those are 4 Game Freak games on the Switch, which is pretty crazy for their output.
That's pretty wild.
And yeah, I agree with you wholeheartedly. If Pokemon looks like Town, if Pokemon Gen 8 looks like Town, I will be very happy.
Yeah, Town is absolutely gorgeous. Just from that short trailer, I really enjoyed. Looks like it's a turn-based RPG. The one battle they show with that giant monster reminds me so much of like a Miyazaki film. It's really, really beautiful, but I agree with Derek that, I need to see more of the game to have some kind of opinion formed about it. I'm interested to see more, but there's not really a whole lot to go on just yet.
I think you said it right there, but one thing that we have actually about as little to go off of, actually even less to go off of, is another Game Freak title, being the Gen 8 version of Pokemon. We know it's coming this year. They've said multiple times. They announced it, in fact, basically when they announced Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee, to kind of like put aside fears that Pokemon is changing permanently. What are we expecting from this game? Because Let's Go did quite well. What do you think a Gen 8 Pokemon looks like now in a post Let's Go and post Go world?
Like we said in our last discussion, I hope that Gen 8 takes some lessons from Let's Go. Mm-hmm. I want random encounters gone. I want to be able to see what Pokemon I'm after. I would love it if it has some visual improvements even over Let's Go, which I think is a very beautiful game. If it had that art style that Town has, would be amazing. A cel-shaded Pokemon game, I think, would just be incredible to look at. But, you know, I think it's just going to be, more of the same. It's going to be more Pokemon, bigger world. Hopefully it takes advantage of some of the Switch's increased horsepower and that we get maybe more dynamic looking battles or something. But I think we're going to get basically, you know, a very safe Pokemon game, what fans are used to. And I think that's what they want. You know, some of the reactions to Let's Go was pretty critical, and I think that's why they announced that Gen 8 would be coming and that it would not be, you know, the same as Let's Go. So I think we're going to get a very typical Pokemon experience, and that's not necessarily a bad thing.
Yeah, so I think lack of random encounters is going to stay. I think you're going to see Pokemon in the overworld in Gen 8. But I think this is also going to look very different to Let's Go. First of all, I don't think you're going to play with a single Joy-Con. I think you're going to play with a normal controller, like a Pro Controller or 2 Joy-Con, whatever you want. And I think it's going to have a third-person camera. And I think that alone is going to change how the world of Pokemon is built. Because up until now, we've had sort of tile-based, bird's-eye view kind of camera. And I think they're going to just go and design a fully third-person world. And that alone is quite different to the formula of how you build Pokemon. But yeah, as Steve said, I think they're also going to use the increased horsepower to have more dynamic battles. One thing of Let's Go that I missed while playing it was rain. It never rains in Let's Go. It never goes dark in Let's Go. It's always just like bright and sunny. I think Gen 8's going to have more dynamic weather, but that's just kind of a mainstay of Pokemon apart from Let's Go. But yeah, I think they're going to sort of return to the roots of the core series while just making it a bit more modern, I guess, in a lot of respects.
So, making it more modern with a third-person camera, I'm totally picturing your characters running around with, like, a gun that shoots Pokeballs at Pokemon. Rapid fire. You're taking cover as you're blasting them with these Pokeballs.
And by your character, you mean Shadow the Hedgehog, right?
Obviously. The ultimate crossover.
I love the idea of a third-person camera and taking that, just the idea of reaching one of those massive cities that they've started putting in these Pokemon worlds and entering them and really feeling like the small-town kid entering this big, wide world. I think it'll have a much greater effect, and being able to see all these characters around and being able to talk to them and just have bustling streets or something like that, or having more examples of Pokemon hanging out with their owners or whatever, what have you. There's a lot of potential there, especially when it comes to what region they decide to base it off on. Like, there's so many potential places they could do that would really excite fans.
Take it to Australia.
Yeah, exactly. Go to Australia. We could finally get our dolphin Pokemon or something like that. That's really cool to have the idea of, like, maybe even bringing back the Safari Zone, because there is the literal outback, right, that you can do. There's a lot of really fun potential there that they could do with a lot of these, and I'm very curious whether they're going to continue the idea of Sun and Moon and getting away from gym battles, or if they're going to bring back gym battles and have maybe a new kind of twist on them, because that's the big question mark for me as far as what they'll do from that point on. But I also realize that Pokemon is a drip feed, and we're probably only going to get maybe like the starters in April, and that's about it until they ramp up their coverage and whatnot. But I think there's a lot of potential here, and it could look truly, truly gorgeous while still staying very traditional. I think we're going to have our normal battles, maybe some new hook that we can look forward to or something to that degree.'t I am really appreciative that Let's Go came out first, because Pokemon games always look better the later they are into the generation. Like, there's always a major step up between the first generation that comes out on a system compared to the second generation that comes out on a system, because they get to know the hardware. And the fact that we already had a game out of the way, then they can learn that hardware and carry that over and figure it out. I think we're in for a really fun time and a really good looking game, and I'm super excited for that.
Now hold up, Derek. You suggested there may be a drip feed starting perhaps in April, but didn't you earlier say you expected all these games in the first half of the year?
Except for Pokemon.
Oh, except for Pokemon. Okay.
Yeah, right. Because that's definitely the November slot, like always.
Hasn't it been earlier in the year? It's been early in the year before.
It's been earlier in the year before, but the last few games, it always comes out in November or late October.
Yeah, I think we had Pokemon Black and White in like March.
Yeah.
So who knows? Maybe it's only 3 months away.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think so.
That typically happened when there wasn't a worldwide release. Whenever they started their worldwide releases, that's when we started getting our November titles.
Yeah, I do think I actually do think it'll probably be November or near the end of the year. But I think they want Let's Go just came out. Why cut those sales off early when you don't need to? I am intrigued, or I'm curious to see what we see from Pokemon 8th Gen. I think you guys are probably right. It probably won't be like a dramatic change in terms of gameplay. So it probably won't interest me too much because I'm gonna need like a drastic shakeup to pull me back in, I think. But obviously I'm not their target demographic, so I get why they're probably not gonna do that.
I mean, some people are predicting a Breath of the Wild style change to Pokemon,
there's no way
and that's just
happening.
not happening.
No. I mean, I personally would love that, but that's not happening, so... Alright, well, let's go and move on to another game that we know a little bit more about, being Luigi's Mansion 3. Now, we only know it's coming out sometime this year. We don't know exactly when yet. You think, Derek, it might be in the first half? That'd be cool. I don't know if I agree, but I wouldn't mind getting sooner rather than later. Now, we only had a very brief trailer. I think it was maybe 40 seconds of gameplay, perhaps even less. That didn't stop me, though, from turning it into like a 30-minute analysis. And there is a surprising amount in that trailer. And what was really interesting about this game is how we got our first taste of it, really, in the Smash Bros. Reveal trailer for Simon Belmont, where we saw Luigi using that same Poltergust, including the new plunger firing ability. So, how are you guys feeling about this game? It's coming just after the re-release of Luigi's Mansion on 3DS, the remake of the GameCube, but this one seems to be more in the style of Dark Moon, you know, where you have your strobe bulb, which you could also use in the 3DS version in order to stun enemies first before you suck them in. So yeah, what are you guys hoping from this?
This is probably an unpopular opinion, but I think Dark Moon's separated mansions were a step back.
Is that unpopular?
I think it is. I think Dark Moon is a very popular game. I don't know, I guess we'll see in the comments.
True.
But yeah, I much prefer the connected mansion of the first game. I thought it flowed way better. And Dark Moon kind of lost my attention along the way. Like, I didn't like how it sort of reset every single mission, and I prefer the flow of the first game. Like, I hope it returns to that. Like, I don't mind the gameplay sort of mirroring Dark Moon, but I hope the progression at least is just sort of this constant connected world rather than being separated all the time.
100% agreed with you there. Yeah, I love the connected nature of the first mansion, how it felt like you were kind of unraveling the secrets of this one singular location. And it seems like that might be the case here, with it being a single tower. But again, I mean, it depends on how they break it up on the interior, right? It's possible you just go from one location to the next, in which case it may not be that different from how Dark Moon handled it. So I am hoping that perhaps, you know, you will be able to revisit earlier areas and you'll be incentivized to, and you can really sell the idea of you kind of like unlocking further secrets in this one location. So
that Simon reveal in Smash trailer kind of ruined Luigi's Mansion 3 a little bit for me, because when I saw Luigi in that style and running from all those things in this castle, I'm like, man, a Luigi's Mansion game set in a castle would be awesome. Having these wide grounds, all these different things to explore, it'd be really cool. And a hotel works. A hotel has a lot of potential, but a lot of me still wishes the Luigi was in a castle instead and having all the potential of that.
Hold up, Derek, because not only is it a hotel, but it actually appears to have a castle portion on the left side. You do not watch my analysis? Why do you not watch my videos?
Because I'm busy working on my own videos.
Yeah, it's got a little castle section. So,
is there a little castle section?
Yeah, there's a little castle. So I don't know how, granted, who knows how big it is or how much that even represents the actual interior, but there is hope there for you, so...
Yeah. True. I mean, I like the idea of it, and what we've seen so far of Luigi's Mansion looks great. Like, I'm actually a huge fan of Dark Moon, much more so than the original, which is, I know, is an unpopular opinion because most people just prefer the original. I didn't mind the breaking up of the mansions, but I do agree that one singular mansion is a much better idea for this one. And to have it in a hotel setting, I think that's a lot of potential, and there's a lot of exploration and rewards that you can get by just having that many more floors. Right off the bat, you can have an elevator that you unlock more floors on, and that way you can have a easy fast travel system right off the bat to go back and check on things or chase after boos or whatever that might have you do. And there's a lot of potential with Luigi's Mansion 3, and I don't know if we know for sure yet if Next Level's the one working on this, but if they are, I have utmost confidence. These guys have never messed up a game, in my opinion, and they're going to knock this one out of the park as well. I am positive of that. And I'm looking forward to seeing how many more emotions we get out of Luigi, because he has so much personality in Dark Moon, and I can't wait to see what they do with that on the Switch.
You know, a recurring theme throughout all these games we've spoken about up to this point has been that we kind of want to know more before we pass judgment on it, but I'm ready. Take my money. All I needed was a title. So it's a Luigi's Mansion game. I love Luigi's Mansion, and I'm totally prepared to throw down on this one. That trailer is gorgeous. It is just everything I've wanted from the series up to this point. I've wanted a modern HD Luigi's Mansion on a home console. I thought Dark Moon was pretty disappointing. I preferred the single mansion, but more importantly, I like this game on my TV, not in handheld mode. And this aims to seemingly appease both camps. You know, you can play it portable if you want, but you can also sit down and enjoy it in your living room, which to me makes this perfect. It's an uncompromising version of Luigi's Mansion for people that want the best of both worlds. It seems we have, from what we've seen in the trailer, it seems like we maybe have one cohesive mansion, but it also has a lot of different themes in it, so it's not all kind of samey. I'm just way excited for this, but I'm expecting it later in the year. I think it's maybe a September release just to hit that Halloween. That's a perfect time to market this game.
Yeah, I totally agree with everything you just said. Like, I love Luigi's Mansion. I'm hyped for this. That's why I made a half-an-hour video about 30 seconds of gameplay. And I also expect it later in the year, especially because I think it might be still a little bit early for it, not just in terms of release timing, but just from what we saw. Because I do think it looks better than a lot of people are giving it credit for, but it also looked not quite finished to me. It looked like there, maybe the lighting needed some work, perhaps. So yeah, I'm not expecting it until the end of this year, so...
It's really important to also note that, according to Nintendo, Luigi's Mansion 3 is just the working title. They haven't even confirmed that this is the actual name of the game yet.
Darker Moon.
Yeah, the Darkest Moon. But that tells me that it's still pretty early on.
Yep,
The darkest side of the moon.
There we go. Well, speaking of games with incomplete titles, Animal Crossing for Nintendo Switch is coming this year, or so Nintendo claims. We don't have a proper title for it. In fact, we don't know really anything about it besides the fact that Tom Nook is in it. Yeah, that's about it. So I guess we can go hog wild on our hopes and expectations for this game. Do you think they're gonna blow it out? Like, do you think it'll be kind of like a grander take on Animal Crossing? Or will it perhaps be something similar to what we saw with Animal Crossing Town and City, I believe it was called? Where it was basically just Animal Crossing Wild World, but on a console, with a couple of new features. So in this case, it'd be New Leaf with some new additions. What are you hoping from this one?
I'm a huge Animal Crossing fan. I imported the N64 version, so for me, Animal Crossing's always been a home console experience. When it moved to handhelds, it helped me engage with it more, but I was kind of disappointed. Like, I've wanted to see my village on the big screen, and having it come back to the Switch, I mean, that alone is exciting, just to be able to play it on my TV again. But I'm really hoping that that this is kind of a tentpole title for Nintendo Switch Online. I think part of what makes Animal Crossing the most fun is inviting your friends into your town and having them help you run amok in there. I would constantly troll my friends by popping up in their town and repeatedly showing them a beetle, because it makes that da-da sound every time you do it. It would drive them absolutely insane.
Nice.
I hope that Nintendo rolls some kind of homegrown voice chat into it like they did with the Wii version, just because I think it's a really good social title and something that is a lot of fun. It's fun to play on your own, but I think it just gains an added dimension when you invite your friends in. So I'm hoping that online play is a major point of this one. But honestly, I'm just happy having my village in HD and being able to see it on the big screen one more time.
Real quick, it was City Folk. I hopefully I beat some of the comments to me mistitling the Wii version.
It's a funny title. It's called Let's Go to the City here in the UK.
Oh, really? Yeah, it is a weird one. And then, of course, the stage in Smash Brothers is Town and City, which I think is what threw me off. So, I think you nailed it, though, there, Steve. They need to focus on the online with this one. There's always been this kind of like magical component to Animal Crossing, and I think almost more so when it was offline because of how it worked. With how, in the original version of the GameCube, it almost gave you the illusion of it being online, and how you could send letters to friends by them entering passcodes, and you would present them with a gift and a short message you gave them. Like, I love that, and they've dipped into the water a little bit throughout the series with the online. In New Leaf, you could visit people's towns as long as they were online, or an offline version, which you couldn't interact with at all if they uploaded it for that purpose. I want them to get rid of the divide. I want to be able to visit my friends' towns whether they're online or not at any time. Maybe don't give me full reign of the town, you know, otherwise I would just go chop down all their trees, but like, I want more. I want it to feel more connected, because it's still, even New Leaf feels like such an isolated experience for the most part, where it's mostly a single player game with you in your town, only really interacting with others when you open your gates to them, right? So I would love if they could make the online more passive, I suppose, if that makes sense, like, you know, more frictionless, I suppose, rather. Make it so it's just more integrated into the experience. I want to be able to do more with that whole thing, so...
I know you've played Stardew Valley a lot, Andre, and it's been 6 years since New Leaf. Do you think there's anything Animal Crossing can learn from Stardew Valley?
Oh man, that is a great point. I mean, it's interesting you bring that up, because I've always thought Animal Crossing and Harvest Moon were very similar ideas, and obviously that carries over to Stardew Valley. I suppose, when you put it that way, I would love if Animal Crossing, I mean, this goes almost completely against what the series is about, but I wish it incorporated more actual game-like elements. Like, if you could actually, like, run a business or something in town, like, you could choose some kind of business to run, or, you know, or maybe you could sell goods you create. You know, I don't know. It'd be fun if they could bring in more, maybe more business into the game, like, you know, in Stardew Valley you're running a farm. It'd be neat if they could bring in some more of that into the series, like, give you more goals. Still keep it casual, like, you know, you don't have to focus on that if you don't want to, but I think it'd be neat if they provided a little bit more of a goal-oriented structure, because for me, like, I typically burn out after a month or so of Animal Crossing because I see everything that's there, and I kind of just get tired of the inherent nature of the activities. So I think it'd be neat if they had a little bit more of business element to it. Like a strategic element, I should say.
So there's a way to do that, just having unique vegetables and fruit that you can sell, and that way they can get those or whatever they might be
Beyond
able to
the
do.
5 they have already.
Yeah, exactly. I've never been able to get into the Animal Crossing series. Those type of games just never clicked with me. I did enjoy New Leaf, and I do fully believe that you'll be the mayor once again, like in New Leaf. Like, I think the mayor aspect was a key component of that game's success, and I think it'll just work in that way again. And I do agree also with the online aspect, and there has to be something. And I think I can almost imagine the ability to create communities with your friends. So maybe all your towns are connected, and there's a central area where you can create like a bazaar, where you have like projects that you work together on to create this bazaar that you can like build up and make nice and have unique things and work together on that, and just have that social interaction aspect to it. And tying into your idea that you had of being able to visit your friends' towns at any time. So if you're part of a community, you can visit their town at any time, and let's say they're away at the moment, or they haven't been able to play, and you want to keep things nice for them. So maybe you can go to their place and get rid of all those weeds that are building up, or talk to their friends and say nice things about you while you're gone. That way, when you come back, you're not going to get guilt tripped for not playing the game for a while, or something to that aspect where you have just a little bit more interactivity and ways to help each other and really push that vibe of a community within Animal Crossing. I think that'd be a really pleasant way of doing that, because I can't see Nintendo opening it up to everybody, but let's say you have a community of 5 to 10 people all playing the game, and you can visit each other's towns and go from there. It'd be really cool. Maybe you can even court villagers from one town to another.
Tell me, okay, correct me if I'm wrong if they've done this before, but I think it's an idea I had before. I thought it would be cool is if you go to the police station, you set the rules as mayor to the police as to what you'll allow in the village, and those two little dogs, like Copper and whatever else, Bark, I forget their names, they enforce those rules on any visitors to your village. So, like, if you don't want people to cut down trees, you know, they'll get arrested if they try to do so or something, or thrown out, I don't know. I do love the community idea, though, and maybe even taking that step, like, I think it'd be neat if you could have, like, a, you know, as you said, like, people you're in community with, and they can, you know, have a greater level of interaction with your village than maybe strangers. I would love it though if they basically do what they had before, where if you're playing on the same console, you can all live in the same town. I wish they would do that online too. Like if we could have our own GameXplain community, our own GameXplain town, how cool would that be? Where we can all interact with these citizens individually or at the same time. It would require there to be a server-based structure for this game, and I think it might be about time. So I think that'd be neat, so that way things can happen in the village, even when you're not playing. Even though that already happens to some degree in Animal Crossing, it's pretty limited, like time passes, but not a whole lot changes, because most of it is dependent on what you do as, you know, as the central character. So it'd be neat if you weren't just a central character, although if they lean into the mayor angle, that might be difficult, because are you gonna have 4 mayors if all your friends are living in your town?
I think that Derek's idea is probably the closest to what reality may look like for an online or a more online Animal Crossing. As much as I think that Animal Crossing is the #1 series in Nintendo's stable of franchises that is ripe for being a persistently online game, we all know Nintendo is pretty slow to embrace this type of stuff. So I do really like the idea of kind of a number of players' towns connected by a central hub where they can all meet up and maybe sell things like the fruit that's unique to their town or whatever. I think Derek's really onto something with that idea.
Yeah, make that a city portion of the game.
Yeah. And just to clarify, Andre, the dog cops are Copper and Booker.
Oh, I was close. I knew there was a
You were. You were really close.
I'll take it.
I love the idea of arresting your friends. That's the
Nothing says friendship like handcuffs.
Yeah, I do think this game, if Nintendo nails it, which they very well may not, this could be the game that really kind of drives Nintendo Switch Online. If they can pull it off of this game, this would be the greatest selling feature of the online system in general. So I'm hoping they do, because if your friends aren't picking up Nintendo Switch Online in order to play Animal Crossing, it might be a very isolating experience otherwise. So
yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Alright, let's go ahead and move on to another game we just only recently found out about, being Marvel Ultimate Alliance 3 The Black Order. We only know that's coming out this year, and then we got a brief trailer along with it, showing off gameplay that looked pretty similar to the previous versions, but it's been a long time since I played them, so if there's any major differences, they escaped me. Although I think, as John will point out, the X-Men are here, which is a pretty big deal, right? So,
and it's developed by Team Ninja.
Yeah.
Like, what a random. This whole thing's random.
It is.
There's a sequel to this game developed by Team Ninja, exclusive to Switch from Marvel. It's like, what is this?
Yeah. What dimension are we in right now?
Good question. I have no idea. Honestly, with the way it does focus on the Black Order and Thanos, if they could get this out around the same time as Avengers Endgame, that'd be great. I don't know if it'll actually happen, because we just haven't seen that much of it. And, Marvel's so ubiquitous that they could release it any time and it'll probably be fine. But just the pedigree behind this game and the random aspect of that it's gotten away from Activision and now belongs to... now Nintendo's publishing this, and it's so weird. And, this is it's basically a Diablo-like experience, just with Marvel characters. And that's not a bad thing. That could be a lot of fun. A lot of people really do enjoy the originals because of the multiplayer aspect, and that is the best part. And to have it built in thanks to the Switch, yeah, this is good. I don't have a lot else to say about it, but I think there's a lot of potential here to just have a good multiplayer action RPG for people to play.
Yeah, that's it.
Yep, I think you said it there. Alright, so that covers every game that seemingly has a concrete 2019 release date as it pertains to first-party titles. However, there are 3 others that are possible for this year. First up, Shin Megami Tensei. This is a series I know almost nothing about, so I will let one of you discuss it a little bit more in depth.
So this was actually announced during the Nintendo Switch January presentation, when we first got our debut of the system.
My god.
And I think it might be the only game that isn't released yet.
Oh, and well, technically Travis Strikes Again as well.
Yeah, so it's one of 2. I mean, no, Travis is in just a few weeks now. But Shin Megami Tensei 5, they've teased it for a while now, but they've never actually really shown it yet. So we have the debut trailer, which shows all of the demons. And it has all of your iconic demons like Jack Frost and Odin and all the other Shin Megami Tensei demons. But that's pretty much what we've seen of the game. Like, we know it's running in Unreal Engine 4. And there's another teaser trailer which kind of shows the main characters, but doesn't really give you a great look at them. So there's a lot of unknowns about this. Actually, Persona was, I mean, it technically still is, but it used to have the subtitle Shin Megami Tensei. They dropped it with Persona 5. So if you're a Persona fan, you're going to find this quite familiar, because they basically are... They show a lot of similar elements. Like, all of the demons in Shin Megami Tensei, you can pretty much find them as personas. So if you like Persona 5 or Persona 4 or whatever else, this should be on your radar. And obviously the 3DS had Shin Megami Tensei 4, which was quite a big deal as well. And it's great to see this series return back to consoles, because it has been a while. Like, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think the last Shin Megami Tensei on a console was on PS2.
I believe that was Nocturne, right?
Right, I think you're right there, yeah.
Yeah. I picked up Shin Megami Tensei 4 after enjoying the Persona games and tried that out, and I kept dying in the tutorial.
It's a toughie.
This game is tough. It is so hard, and I think they really need to go a little easier on the difficulty if they want this to become as big as Persona or have that same pedigree as Persona, because I stopped playing. Everything I hear about it is like it does get easier as you go along, but to have that wall in front of you when you first start, I'm sorry, I'm not gonna bash my face against that wall in order to get to the real meat of the gameplay. You've kind of just like, if I'm dying on the tutorial stuff, I'm just turned away, and I really hope they properly balance the difficulty this time around. And maybe for longtime fans, that's what they want. Great. Make that a hard mode or something like that, or veterans mode. Give me something easier so I can not die immediately and it just struggle the entire way. I'm really hoping they do that with Shin Megami Tensei 5, because otherwise I'm skipping it. I just am.
That's interesting, because I saw a tweet the other day that said, I hope they go in hard with Shin Megami Tensei 5. So,
oh god.
I guess some people want the opposite of that. I am with you, though. I think Shin Megami Tensei 4 is kind of... It's not very accessible. It does get easier, as you said, but to actually get going is kind of tough. So hopefully 5 eases you in a bit more. But that being said, I'm still very excited to see more of this game. The fact that it's running in Unreal Engine 4 is quite exciting too, because we've not really seen a highly detailed game in this series. Like Persona 5, yeah, but that was still a PlayStation 3 game. So to have like a current gen, HD Shin Megami Tensei, is gonna look pretty good.
You know, I've played Shin Megami Tensei 4 a little bit, and I have to agree with Derek that these games are mind-bendingly difficult. And I feel that that difficulty definitely limits its audience significantly, because the storytelling and the gameplay is definitely interesting. It's fun, and as someone who's played just loads of old-school turn-based RPGs, I find the process of acquiring demons and adding them to your party, so to speak, is really interesting. It's a good hook. It makes the games interesting because it's not like you just talk to them and they say, hey, I'll join you. Like, you have to answer questions that they ask you in a way that would make sense. So you have to understand the personality of each demon to a degree to get them to join you. And I think that'll play really well on Switch, provided that they tone down the difficulty, because it is going to turn a lot of people off if 5 is as hard as 4. That level of difficulty should remain, but it should be optional. I'll definitely take a look at the game, but obviously we need to see a whole lot more of it, as is a recurring theme here, just because we've not seen, to the best of my knowledge, any gameplay whatsoever. So I'd like to see what this game looks like before I decide if I'm going to throw down on it on day one, or if I'm going to let my friends do the heavy lifting and just watch it on YouTube or Twitch.
So are we expecting it this year?
I am, yeah.
You are? Okay.
Yeah, it's been a while now. It's been announced for 2 years, and I think it's time. I can see Atlus pushing quite hard for this, because their last big console RPG was Persona 5, and that was localized in 2017. I think it released in Japan in 2016. So all of Atlus's teams, they've been kind of just working away on smaller handheld titles for a while. So I think this is kind of the right time to release a big console game. So yeah, I think this is this year. And I'll probably go with maybe like September for this game.
I actually disagree. I think what we're going to see is a Persona 5 port, and I think that that's going to be, or at least the excuse we'll get is that was the team getting a feel for the hardware and getting their legs under them, and then we'll see definitely a gameplay blowout on this before the end of the year, but I'd be betting if we see it in 2019, it's later, like November or December.
I agree with you, but I still think both games are going to come this year.
You think they're both going to happen?
Yeah.
Hey, that'd be great.
Yeah.
I'm all for it.
I think we'll finally get more information about Shin Megami Tensei 5. I am not sure if we'll actually get it in 2019. I could see it being early 2020, like January, February 2020, but for whatever reason, I don't feel we'll get 5 in 2019. I could be wrong. I'm perfectly willing to be wrong. But if they do release it in November or December, I think it'll get buried. I think if they need to shoot for a July, August release date.
That's going to be the very first game they show off in the January Direct, and be like, it's coming out right now.
I was not wrong about being January then.
All right, let's move on to another game that we're not quite sure exactly when we'll see it, and that is Bayonetta 3. We've in fact seen very little of this game. We've heard very little of this game. We only had the teaser trailer in the 2017 Game Awards. We heard, I don't think, anything about it this past year. Are we expecting it this year? And yeah, what are your hopes for it?
I think we could see it this year.
I'm not expecting it.
Oh, really? We're opposite on this one again.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, I'm not expecting it this year. I think we've seen so little, and it sounds like Platinum Games are juggling a few games at the moment. They released a statement not long ago saying I think there's like 2 new IPs or something in the works. So I don't know what their resources are like, or how they even managed to do all these games, but I don't think Bayonetta 3 is one of those 2019 games.
Especially once you factor in the Star Fox Zero Switch port, right?
Exactly, yeah. Hard to work on that.
Yeah, definitely working on that. They're releasing a gamepad for the Switch just to make sure it's authentic.
Authentic, exactly.
I do think we'll get Bayonetta 3 in 2019, if only because we got Bayonetta 1 and 2 last year. I think they want to keep that at least somewhat in the mind of people, or something to that degree. And, you know, they've probably been hard at work on it, and hopefully get it at a decent time, or it comes out sometime within this year. But I also could easily see it pushed back to 2020. I'm hoping 2019 though, because I know nothing about this game. I'm going to buy it.
Yeah. You seem pretty excited just in your analysis of the reveal trailer. So
we're seeing Bayonetta in a way we don't normally see her, where she's actually on the back foot and like just being completely overpowered. That doesn't really happen.
No. And I do think too, Smash Brothers Ultimate is probably going to help it as well. Like I think that's going to draw more attention to Bayonetta as a character. I know it did for me because I didn't play too much of the DLC, and I know I'm not alone in that, considering it was on Wii U and 3DS. So yeah, I wonder if that'll help Bayonetta 3 get more attention than it may have otherwise.
I am torn on whether or not we'll see Bayonetta 3 this year. If we do, it'll be in the second half of the year, post E3. I anticipate we'll get a lot more information about the game at E3, but I wouldn't be surprised if we saw first gameplay before then. If we do, I'm anticipating somewhere in September, October. If it doesn't make it by that time, it's definitely a 2020 title.
I'm going to predict it'll be early 2020. I don't think it'll quite make it this year, but it could be an early year title, much as Bayonetta 1 and 2 were on the Switch. So, yeah, especially because I feel like this might be a hard sell going up against Nintendo's typical first-party efforts as well in the latter half of the year, assuming, you know, we don't know what exactly is going to be there yet, but we know Nintendo's going to have at least 10 games. Look at the schedule. I mean, they'll have a couple big ones, right? So, who knows? We'll see. Hopefully we see more of this game soon, though, because it's been a while and I want to see how it actually plays. Alright, let's move on to the big one. Metroid Prime 4. So, last year, in our previous discussion for 2018, by that I mean when we're looking ahead to 2018, we all predicted, I believe, that, or the ones that were on the discussion predicted that it wouldn't be releasing that year. However, we all thought we would be seeing it that year, and that didn't happen. We heard nothing about this game. It was announced at E3 in 2017, and we have not seen it since. What do you expect to see of this game? Do you think it's coming out this year, and will it be blown out at E3 if not sooner?
Yes, I do think we'll see it this year. I think it will release this year too. I think it will.
Yeah.
But yeah, there are still a lot of unknowns. There's heavy rumors that Bandai Namco are developing it, but that's not official. Nintendo still hasn't revealed who's developing this game, and I'm kind of worried. About this game because it's difficult to say what Metroid Prime actually is. And I think what it isn't is a shooter. And if they lean into that combat aspect, I think they might forget what Metroid Prime's meant to be. I do think Metroid Prime needs better combat, but I don't want it to be the focus. So I worry that they're going to show a trailer that's just all gunplay, and that's going to turn me off.
I don't want to judge before I see anything, so we'll see what they ultimately end up with. But I figure, you know, Miyamoto was a guiding hand, and I think he pushed for the idea of more of an adventure game in first person than anything else. So I think that Nintendo realizes what they need to do with Prime as far as to make it feel like a Metroid game. But I do agree with you that I think we will get it this year. At the very least, see something of it. But I do think it'll release. And honestly, I could see this getting the Mario Odyssey slot in October.
I think we're going to see Metroid Prime 4 this year. I do think it's going to be one of Nintendo's bigger titles for 2019. I'm with John, though, in that I'm a little worried about this game. Not necessarily because of how it'll play, but I think that Metroid Prime 3 with the Wiimote was a perfect realization of what I wanted a Metroid Prime game to be, especially from a control perspective. And I'm not sure how you go back to a regular controller after having played with the Wii remote. So, I mean, they could use the IR pointer on the right Joy-Con, but I just don't see it being as accurate or as fun to use. So, I'm really interested to see where Nintendo takes the game from a control perspective. You know, and obviously sitting on the couch with a Pro controller will work just fine, but I'll probably be longing for the days where I had that remote.
the controls are worrying, because the first two games were played with a single stick, and then you have Metroid Prime 3 and the Trilogy, which were made around motion controls. I don't think they can do either of those, really. Like, maybe they can have dual-stick-assisted gyro, but I think the control-wise, this is probably going to be very different to previous games.
Yeah, I think it has to be, because I think if you implement like a Splatoon style of aiming, it will feel weird in first person. Assuming they go the first person route. We don't know for sure that they will, although the Prime moniker does suggest such. Yeah, I'm very curious to see what they end up with. I mean, I think the closest thing might be, as Steve was, I think, getting at, would be if you use the right Joy-Con as a pointer, which has worked before. Like, it's worked pretty well. It's not quite as good as a Wii Remote because it does lose calibration because there's no sensor bar to recalibrate persistently, but that may be the best option here, and maybe just allow dual stick controls for those who would prefer those. Instead, you're playing on a Pro Controller, for instance, so I don't know. It's tough. How about in terms of general gameplay, though? Because for me, I almost feel like they have to go back to basics a little bit. Almost like a Luigi's Mansion 3. Because with each of the Metroid Prime games, it kind of just added more complexity to it. Metroid Prime 2 added the second dimension. Metroid Prime 3 added multiple worlds, which kind of segmented the gameplay. And I kind of want them just to go back to one giant world. One Metroid-style world where you just, you know, the more you play, the more you unlock, the deeper into the world, you know, into the environment you can get. I think that's kind of what they need to do for this one.
Yeah, agreed. And I think they absolutely can do that. It's not an oversaturated genre by any means. I mean, there are lots of Metroidvanias out there, but there are hardly any 3D ones.
Exactly.
And hardly even any come to mind. Like, I guess the Batman Arkham games, maybe. But apart from that, Metroid Prime just kind of has it surrounded, so they can quite easily go back to basics and not feel like it's a step back. And, yeah, Metroid Prime 1's still my favourite. I think the other ones are fun, and they have their own little, like, nice little twists on the formula. But just the simplicity of Prime 1 will always be my favourite.
Yeah, I think a single planet is probably for the best, and exploring its mysteries, finding out what's going on. I don't know what they'll do for that one as far as setting and all that. All we know is somehow Sylux is involved, and I guess the Metroid Prime is still hanging around somewhere, so we might see Dark Samus return. Maybe he got possessed by Dark Samus or something like that. Who knows? But there's a lot of mysteries involved, but it's until we get any kind of information, I find it difficult to speculate because it could go in any wild random direction.
Well, even suggesting that Sylux is involved, which you're basing on the ending of Federation Force, I believe, right?
Correct.
And Prime 3 as well,
And 3,
technically.
yeah.
Oh, that's true. But yeah, even that is speculation. You know, who knows? I mean, it's possible they may not pick up right where they left off there with those story threads.
Right. But can we all agree that Sylux needs a redesign?
I was gonna say, yeah, I totally agree with that. I really hate any. I hate any humanoid non-Samus character in these games. I hate them all. They all should just be just redesigned or abandoned or whatever else. Really, actually, here's another point. I don't want Samus to really interact with people. She did it at Metroid Prime, and that was great. That was beautiful. So yeah, I'm hoping they kind of keep that. So hearing about Sylux doesn't exactly get me thrilled for the idea of him being back. But maybe they can redesign him.
I repeat, the best way to reveal this game is slow exploration, trying to figure things out, scanning a few things, and then at the very end having a showdown with Kraid.
Oh yeah,
Oh,
put Kraid in
man.
there. That'd be so cool.
How weird is it that I think his only true proper 3D appearance, if you want to call it that, or the closest to that, is in Nintendo Land, which was amazing, by the way. That battle was fantastic, but still, that shouldn't be his only 3D representation.
I do agree with you guys though. If they lean into like showcasing the game, I hope that they just have Samus. Like, don't show any other characters. Because Prime 1 doesn't really have any other characters. Like,
No.
Ridley's in there, but he doesn't like interact with Samus.
You don't talk to
really. He just
him,
sort of
yeah.
attacks her.
You don't sit down and have a chat.
That's part of Retro's design. Like, Retro tells their stories through the environment. Like, they have scanning, they have contextual platforms. They let you sort of examine what's going on and work out the story for yourself.
Right.
So I hope Bandai Namco understand that with Prime 4.
Agreed. I'm excited. I just want to know what this game, is. So I am very much looking forward to what Bandai Namco can do with it. It is exciting. It's exciting and nerve-wracking that it's in the hands of a brand new developer. Because Retro did prove themselves to be rather competent with this series, even if I didn't like the sequels quite as much as one. They were all great games. So I'm very curious to see what New Blood can do for this series. So
Regardless, I'm pretty hyped for it. I think it'll end up being a great game, assuming that it's in the hands of a competent developer, which Bandai Namco has proven that they are. So if they're in charge of it, I'm confident that it'll at least be fun. Yeah, I do agree if Sylux is in there, homeboy needs a redesign. He looks like he looks like a character from that old N64 canceled game Freak Boy.
You know what's funny? Without even specifying what game you meant, I totally just had the idea of what you were getting at. It's like, oh yeah, it totally does look like a rejected N64 character.
I will say, I just as a small prediction for 2019, I think we could possibly see the Metroid Prime trilogy come to Switch as part of the January Direct, and I think that would be a good place to get people used to the idea of whatever the control scheme of Prime 4. Like, implement that control scheme into the trilogy, and then people will be ready for Prime 4's controls.
I think it's a really great prediction, Derek, and I think that might be a perfect time to segue into an ad for part 2 of this discussion, in which we'll be bringing up everything else about Nintendo Switch, including things we don't know about, such as games that may have been rumored, or games we expect, like Metroid Prime Trilogy perhaps, as well as everything else, like Nintendo Switch Online, and even beyond Nintendo Switch, like 3DS and the potential of new classic systems. So yeah, this discussion went on a little bit longer than I expected it to. There was a lot to talk about, clearly, and we'll be back with even more in part 2. So thanks for watching, and we'll catch you later. Bye.